Why don't I call this meeting to order? Good evening. My name is Bob Connors. It's 6:01 p.m. and I'd like to call the March 18th meeting of the Newbury Conservation Commission to order. Mason, could you please read the remote open meeting law preamble and take a roll call of the members present?
As a preliminary matter, this is Mason Ferret, Conservation Agent of the Newbury Conservation Commission, and I call the March 18th meeting to order and permit me to confirm that all members are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Mary Rimmer,
Yes.
TJ Conti,
Yes.
Mick Brown,
I see Mick. Mick,
I was on mute there for a minute, Bob, but I'm here.
okay, thank you, Mick.
Diane O'Brien,
Yes.
Woody Knight,
Yes.
Frank Wettenkamp,
Yes.
and Bob Connors.
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. This open meeting of the Newbury Conservation Commission is being conducted remotely and consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12th, 2020, due to the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. For this meeting, the Newbury Conservation Commission is convening by Zoom call as posted on the agenda of the Newbury section, or the conservation section of the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that attendees are participating by video conference. Applicants or the representatives may be called upon to speak and or share information to the screen if able on the fly. We're now turning to the first item on the agenda, but before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct. The chair will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your microphones, use earbuds, and please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate meeting minutes. After the board and committee members have spoken, the chair will forward public comment as follows. The chair will first seek questions through the chat function, and then the chair will seek questions from the public who wish to speak. They'll be asked to identify their names, address questions, and once the chair has a list of all public commentators, they will call on each by name and afford 3 minutes for any comments. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote.
Okay, thank you, Mason. Mason, you had an announcement on 80 Northern Boulevard.
Yep, so Al Ward, the applicant, has requested a continuance to the April 1st meeting.
So there was a additional comments team that came in from DEP on March 17th, and the applicant wants to review and be able to respond accordingly to the additional comments from the department. So hence he's required a continuance. So that matter will not, we're going to continue the public hearing without the applicant here. We're not going to discuss the matter without the applicant here. So just wanted to let everybody know that patiently probably been waiting to join this call, that we didn't want you to waste any more time than you already have. So when the matter comes up, there'll be a motion to continue this to our next meeting, and that will be the only action. There'll be no other discussion on the matter other than the continuance request. So with that, meeting minutes review. We have the February 18th meeting minutes and the March 4th meeting minutes. Why don't we review the February 18th meeting minutes? Let's see if there's any comments, questions, or concerns.
I wasn't there for that one, I don't think.
Or me.
Okay, well, the good thing is we have a full house here, so we will have a quorum on who was
Yep.
here. Okay, not hearing any questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes of February 18th. So roll call, all in favor, Mary?
Yes.
TJ, you weren't present?
I was not.
Woody?
Yes.
Mick?
Yes.
Diane, you weren't present?
No.
Okay, Frank?
Yes.
And Bob Connors votes yes. All right, now let's review the March 4th meeting minutes. see if there's any questions, comments, corrections. I was not at this meeting, and Mary did an amazing job in record time chairing that meeting.
I would just make a note that the minutes say March 5th, but the meeting was March 4th.
Okay, hearing no other questions or corrections, I'll entertain a motion to approve the March 4th meeting minutes with the date correction suggested by Mary.
So
Roll
moved.
call? Okay, do we have a second?
Second,
Okay, roll call vote. All in favor? Mary?
Yes.
TJ, were you at that meeting? I was
I was not.
Okay. Woody?
Yes.
Mick?
Yes.
Diane?
yeah,
Frank?
Yes.
And I was not at that meeting, so passes. All right, next order of business is a RDA for 105 Northern Boulevard. The applicant is submitting an RDA to replace a previously existing deck in the backyard. The applicant also wants to add 2-foot wide bluestone to create a walkway path around the deck to the side of the house. Historic aerials are provided to show the previously deconstructed deck. Is the applicant here?
He is not. At the last meeting, he had requested a continuance to the April 1st meeting.
Okay. All right, at the applicant's request, is there a motion to continue this to our April 1st meeting?
So
so
moved.
moved. A second,
Okay, roll call, Mary,
Yes.
TJ,
Aye.
Woody,
Yes.
Mick,
Yeah. Aye.
Diane,
yes,
Right. Frank, and
Yes.
Bob. Yeah, I mean, technically, it's not a public hearing, so it really doesn't require a vote, but it might as well just keep it standardized for practice. Okay, next matter is an RDA for 1249 Street. Applicant is submitting an RDA to propose deck expansion on the property's east and west facing decks. The property is on the primary frontal dune and has existing beach grass vegetation surrounding the deck. Mason, you want to give us an overview on this one? Have you been out to the site?
Yep, I've been able to get out to the site. So yeah, like you said, 1249th Street. There's an existing deck on the east and west facing side of the property. And the applicant is proposing a 3-foot extension on both of these decks. There is existing vegetation at the foot of each of these decks, and I can show some photos for that. And then my recommendation would just be to replace the vegetation in kind after construction. And I would request that the commission inquire about the types of anchors and piles that the new deck is going to be going on. And I'll pull up those photos right now.
Okay, is the applicant present?
He is, Bob.
If you could give us your name and your address. And
My name is Bob. It's Joseph L.E., 1249th Street.
Joe, how are you?
I'm doing well, Bob. How are you?
Good. Okay, Joe, why don't you give us an overview to what you're trying to do? We're looking at pictures.
Okay, the top photos are the east-facing ocean face side. As you can see, there is no current vegetation there that would prevent any replanting. The deck will be coming out 3 feet, and I believe the length of that is 29 feet. Straight line across.
Okay, and that's the extent of what you want to do, Joe.
That's correct on the east side.
Joe, what's there now? Is that just all like a sandy gravel base?
That is just sand in the backyard. That's correct. Never was any vegetation there. I moved in 2015 and it was never cleared. That was just the nature of the backyard at that time. It's just sand, correct?
What are you proposing, Joe, for the support for the expansion of the deck?
I'm not sure. I haven't talked to the contractor in quite a while, but he said if I was to keep it 3 feet or under, he didn't think that anything would be significant for the pilings.
Okay, so you're thinking of a piling. The one thing the commission typically doesn't like is concrete filled sonotubes. But you know, there's certainly a number of other type of piling supports that you could consider.
Okay, I'll certainly speak to him about that, and that is noted. And then I would send that along to Woody and the committee for approval.
Yeah, I think what we'll probably do is just have you do a pre-construction meeting with the agent. And obviously if he has any questions, he could bring it to our attention, but. So why don't I hold there and Joe, see what questions we have from the members. Mary, questions for Joe Ali on this minor project?
I didn't see a plan. Do we have any kind of a plan showing this where this work is? Can we show that, Mason?
Yep.
Thanks. Sure, I see it in the Dropbox. So and there's an addition in the front as well?
Correct. The east side facing the ocean, which is on the right side of that picture, and then the west side also for the same length.
Okay, and Mason, is that correct that there's no vegetation within the area that's proposed for the additions?
For the east side, there's no vegetation, and then the west side, I can show what's existing.
Mason, if you could note that the stairs that go up the long side of that deck, there, that would be in the second row of pictures, the deck would then be extended straight out right across, and that grass that is underneath there is actually grass that I had planted in 2016 or 2017. And I cannot remember that other conservation agent's name who was here back then, but we did request that back then to plant that grass. Previous to me owning the property, there was no grass there. And then if you'll note, even further west of that, there are 3 vegetable gardens. Correct, if you can look on that bottom picture. And those would be further out to the west of that deck expansion. So the deck would come straight out to right where the end post is here.
So Joe, typically, excuse me, Mary, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm just trying to understand if the planting that was done against the house, was that mitigation for another filing? Was that required as a part of approval for you to do improvements to the house at that time?
He never asked me to have anything done. I had just told him that I wanted to plant additional beach grass. I currently, at that time, I put some grass there because it was before we had the vegetable gardens. We didn't know what we wanted to do with that space. But we wanted to cover up that white, whatever you call that white board that's below the deck there.
Right, the trellis there.
Yeah,
So I guess, so the vegetable gardens are new too. It looks like, so they would have disturbed some vegetation there as well on the dune. Looks like, or are they in an already cleared area?
they were in an already cleared area.
Okay, well, I guess, so my concern just would be that, placement of a deck in that area would result in the loss of that grass. Because it'll be completely shaded and it'll be covered by the trellis again. So we would need, 1.5 to 1 mitigation for that loss of vegetation, in my opinion. So I think that we would just need to show on the plan where you would make that mitigation planting.
So Joe, basically, we can't have a net loss of vegetation. There has to actually be some net improvement because you're in a primary coastal dune. So that being said, you could remove that grass and replant that in an area, but you just need to show where you'd have to have that kind of sketched on your plan. The 1.5 to 1 is typically for the survival rate. I mean, what's required? An 80% survival rate, Mary, on planting?
75.
75.
And there, you know, the question is whether or not we only need the mitigation plantings for the western addition and not the existing deck, where that's not coming out over plantings, and it looks like it's a fairly flat area. Is it fairly flat right there?
It is
Yeah.
extremely flat, and I believe the actual area is a semicircle that extends another 20 feet after that.
Yeah, I
And
can
that is
see it
all-
on the
that is all
aerials. Yeah.
Yep.
So those are my thoughts.
Okay, Mary. I'll circle back when we
Thank you.
go through everyone. TJ, any questions for Joe on his proposal? You're on mute, TJ, if you have any questions.
Yes, sorry about that. I'm looking at the plan now where the addition, the smaller addition that's going to abut the stairs. It doesn't seem to show the stairs. Is that jog right there? It's going to be 16 by 8, but that's the existing deck. So the 3 feet coming out will abut the stairs that are there existing now, correct?
Yeah, the plan isn't really reflective, Joe, is showing that showing the stairs and then showing the infill to bump it out to the stairs.
Right. The picture that Mason provided gives you a better visual on
Right.
just the
okay.
extension of the stairs.
Okay. And there's, I agree with Mary about the mitigation of the grass that's there. Looks like there's plenty of room to put other grass on the property, so that'd be good.
Okay, thank you, TJ. Woody,
Sure.
any comments for Joe on this one?
The only thing new that hasn't already been said was, I noticed that the existing decks are on sonotubes already, so maybe your contractor might have, wasn't gonna replace sonotubes at all, and maybe was gonna cantilever, but it's just a speculation on my part. Maybe after a conversation with the contractor, you'll have more insight on what they're gonna do with the footings. If they're gonna leave them in cantilever, or if they're gonna put new ones in.
Woody, my initial conversation with the contractor is yes, those footings are going to stay. And I believe he said that there was a system they could put in place to prevent any additional columns to go in if I was going to keep that extension to either 3 feet or under on both the east side and the west side.
Did he mention diamond piers if
Bob, I'm not sure what he mentioned, but I know it wasn't something as extent as the pylons.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, diamond piers, I'm saying that correctly. I haven't been to a meeting in a month now and I'm losing my edge. Diamond piers is typically what a lot of the contractors use.
Helicals, yeah.
Yeah. So all that is, Joe, is a picture an 16 by 16 cement block. That 1.5-inch pipe is driven through predetermined holes. And I think it goes down 3 feet and it's approved by the state building code and it's acceptable to DEP and the commission.
Or helical pot
Yeah,
piers.
or helical piles, but
Yes.
Mason and Peter can guide you through that. Okay, Mick, any questions for Joe on this one?
Yeah, not so much questions that I'm a little difficulty orienting myself with looking at the plantings and where they are situated to where the new additions are going to be. I think maybe a little bit more detailed plan, and I think having a more detailed plan with footings, pilings, helical pilings, whatever going to be installed would answer a lot of questions here. I think we're just a little short of having the information we need to move forward.
Okay, thank you, Mick. Diane, questions for Joe?
Just one comment, in your RDA, in the application itself, you said that you're gonna extend both decks by 2 feet and not 3, so.
up to 3 feet, and I believe that's the width of the stairs there.
Yeah, your application just says, I would like to extend both decks by 2 feet. So just, I'd make them consistent, or maybe just it's clear, I guess now you're gonna go 3 feet, right?
Up to 3 feet, I think that's what the contractor said, that I wouldn't need to go to the pylon method. If I were to
Yeah.
keep it under that.
I'm just saying that the RDA application says that
Yeah.
you want to go 2 feet,
Yeah.
just 2 feet only.
There's gonna be some updating, Joe, of your application and of your plan. So that it's a little more accurate and representative. I think that's what everyone's getting to. Diane, anything else for Joe at this point?
Nope.
Okay, Frank, questions for Joe Ali?
No further questions, thank you.
Okay, so Joe, just doing a recap, I think you certainly have some area. We can't have a net loss of vegetation, especially in a frontal dune area. But you certainly have areas where you can remove and replant the beach grass that you have, or get new beach grass. So typically, to Mary and Mick's point, your plan needs to be, reflective of what you're proposing to do. Your pitches don't reflect what your existing proposal is. So I'm going to suggest did you have this? Who did this drawing for you, Joe?
I believe that I had sent that, I obtained that online.
Okay. I think if you can talk to your contractor, Mason, can you work with Joe and just kind of guide him through what we're looking for?
Yep, definitely.
The jog of the stairs, we should know what that is. The stair should be shown. Then it should say it's 3 feet by 18 feet. And then it should be a typical section showing it on a diamond pier or some other typical substrate. And then a location where you propose to replant the grass. And again, we typically ask a 1.5. If you're eliminating 30 square feet, we want 1.5 times you to replant. Then your survival rate will be above the minimum requirement. And you get the grass there, and your grass is very thickly settled. It's a 12 by 12 grid on the sprigs too. So you certainly have enough existing stock to create the mitigation planting. But why don't I stop there? Mary, I'm going to circle back to you. Does that kind of summarize where we're at on this one?
Yes.
Okay. Mason, what comments do you have?
Nothing at this time. I think that all those things make sense to add to the plan, and I'm definitely willing and able to help Joe.
Okay. Joe, do you have any questions? I hope I added some clarity of what we're looking for.
You did.
And I think that I think if you can modify that plan, it doesn't have to be, I think we just want the actual dimensions on it. And I think, Mason, you can dig up a typical section of a diamond pier.
And show where the plantings are gonna go.
Yeah,
possibly towards the water.
Yeah. So,
So
And I
remove
think-
remove the grass from the west side and then plant the grass on the dune on the east side. That would be sufficient for the committee?
yeah, I think it would, you know what, you can work that all out with Mason. And I think then we just memorialized on a plan and come back on the 1st and you'll be all set. You should be in good shape. I'm not going to speak for anyone beyond myself. That's
Okay, well,
usually that's usually the minimum we require, Joe, so.
I have no problem replanting the grass, but I'm going to have to wait another 3 weeks to submit another plan and come back to the committee to get it approved again.
It's 2
Is that
weeks.
correct?
We meet every
weeks?
2 weeks, yeah, so.
On the 1st.
Yeah, April 1st. And it's just the process, Joe. So. Okay, anything else, Joe, before we move on to any other
No.
questions? Okay, so
No,
work together with Mason and we'll see you on April first.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, the next matter we have, I can get these papers apart here. We have 3 open enforcement orders, none require action tonight. And again, I think we're waiting for the end of April to just verify that the replantings have taken place. So we're going to move on to, there's no extension request tonight. We have no certificate of compliance request. We have a continued public hearing, DEP file number 0501444, 80 Northern Boulevard. Applicant is submitting a notice of intent to demolish and removing existing single-family dwelling. The existing garage and site will remain untouched, and the construction of a new single-family home would follow the demolition process. Additional site improvements also outlined on the NOI. Project site is located on or within a primary funnel dune. And the applicant has notified the agent that he's requesting a continuance to our April 1st meeting. So I will entertain a motion to continue this matter to April 1st.
So moved.
Second,
That's TJ and that's Diane. Okay, all in favor? Roll call. Mary,
Yes.
TJ,
Aye.
Woody,
Yes.
Mick,
Aye.
Diane,
yes.
Frank,
Yes.
and Bob Carter's vote yes. For anyone that was not at the opening of the meeting, we made an announcement that the applicant, upon receiving further comments from DEP on his recent submittal, needed additional time to review and ask for the continuance. So that was the reason that was stated. So, okay, next matter is an amendment request, DEP file number 0501435, Sunset Club. Applicant is submitting an amendment to the current order of condition that includes the installation of a 40 by 40 open pavilion structure. The submission addresses the impacts of new resource areas and any changes to stormwater management. Mason, can you provide an overview on this one?
Yeah, so like you said, 40 by 40 pavilion. It's going to be faced in a manner to where when you're driving on and off the island, you're able to see through it. And then their application notifies that there's no stormwater changes or impacts with the construction of the pavilion. But besides that, I will leave it to the applicant.
Okay, I see both TJ and Jeff. Who's going to make the presentation tonight on this one, gentlemen? TJ, I'm assuming it's you.
Good evening, everyone. TJ Melvin with Millennium Engineering. You have the applicant. So the commission, most of you, I believe, were on the commission when we kind of last discussed this over the summer. And we were back in front of the commission back in the fall to reestablish an order of conditions as the previous one had expired. I'll pull up the plan in a second, but you will see a lot of the proposed stuff on that plan. And a lot of that is in reference to the original approved plan back from the fall, and I can highlight the amendment changes along with this application. So Mason, if I have the ability to screen share, oh, you already gave it. Thank you. All right, can everyone see this plan?
Yes.
So really what we're looking for to amend is the addition of this 40 by 40 pavilion. It is open on all 4 sides. The only other change associated with this is, you can see my cursor here. This is the existing fence that's kind of along where the bathrooms go and along the parking. We just need to shift it back a couple feet to be able to fit this corner in here. Again, this is just a typical section. Obviously, we're not planting grass all around this. But just kind of give you an idea what the pavilion itself is. So it's open on all 4 sides, does have a roof. Under the structure and around the structure will all remain sand as it currently is. This area, as many of you may remember, is kind of like that open, just sand area. And as Mason had brought up regarding the stormwater, so all of the runoff from this change is from obviously the roof, Roof runoff is considered clean under Mass DEP Stormwater Handbook, so it does not need to be treated. And this entire site is within land subject to coastal storm flowage, so we do not need to account for any increase in pre versus post runoff rates. It will be running directly to sand, so it's really not going to go much of anywhere. If it were to flow, it would come either to the rain garden, or we do have this dune that was kind of installed as part of the original submittal. Just to circle back on some of the items that were required in the fall and that we have shown as proposed on this plan. So the applicant has installed this dune as was required. The grass plantings have been installed. The merge shed has been raised up as was requested on this plan. And the only outstanding item that they still have is to install the rest of the plantings, which they will be doing this spring. I just wanted to add that kind of for the commission's consideration, as since we did get the approval last, they have been working towards completing the site plan. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions the commission may have, or can go into any further detail.
Okay, yeah, thank you, TJ. Let's start. Mary, questions for TJ on the pavilion proposal?
Yeah, TJ, I assume that the butters were re-notified as part of this filing?
Yes.
Okay, and copies provided to DEP
Yes.
of the,
I can get all the certificates over to
Okay.
Mason if Steve did not send them already.
yeah, just sometimes that gets missed in amendments. And
Yes.
two questions really. One is, how do you protect that dune? Well, three questions. What is the purpose of the pavilion? Like, what kind of use is it intending to get? Or will it have a bar in it, or is it what other structures are intended to go underneath this?
Not 100% part of Vincent. Are you available on the call? Or?
Yeah, I'm here. Hi, Vincent Godin, one of the owners of the property. The purpose of the pavilion is really to act as a covered area for rain events, just excessive sun. We're not adding any additional seating to the restaurant or anything. It's just to be able to relocate seats, or we've had a number of situations where there was a risk of a storm, and we had, let's just say, somebody's birthday party of 40 people. Well, we have to shut down the entire restaurant in that circumstance because we can only fit 40 people inside of the restaurant. So this just provides us an opportunity to have something to just shield from the elements. There is no intention of having anything under it. There is the building that you can see right there just north of it that says building. There is an existing bar inside of that, and facilities inside of that. So there isn't any intention of having anything but some seats that'll get relocated in there as needed.
And tables?
Tables, yes, the picnic tables that are already existing on the property.
So will you be getting, I'm just curious if this is going to be adding to, more structures, or if you're going to be relocating, like you're talking, moving structures underneath
it's
it.
purely relocating the existing tables that are already on site as needed, depending on weather events.
Okay. And then my only two other questions, Bob, was how will the dune be protected if it looks like it's going to be, construction right up against it, and potentially people exiting in that direction? Unlikely, but because the street's right there, people can come in and out right there if they wanted to. I don't remember if there's fencing or something.
There's dune fencing that surrounds the entire property
Okay,
along
so they
that
can't
side.
scoot in that way.
No, you cannot walk in from
Okay.
from. And after we put in the dune fencing, it obviously became an issue, especially with young children that
Yes.
thought it was a playground. And so we added some signage, as well as we had some temporary dune fencing up just to kind of keep people off of it while the grass kind of takes hold inside of it.
Okay.
So we definitely will have the signage, and probably have to add the temporary fencing again, just to kind of keep people from unknowingly causing damage to it.
Thanks. And my last question was about you're proposing sonotubes to support this. Is that correct? It's on the plan, and that's something that we typically don't allow for accessory structures. So that was my comment.
To the
If there's
diamond.
Yeah, if there's some
piers.
alternative to the sonotubes, the concrete, supports for the structure, is it possible that it can be supported using something that's a little less impactful?
You may be looking at helical, the diamond piers may not be sufficient because you're gonna have a wind load on this too, Vince, but
Yeah,
I think it's something that I think what Mary is getting to, anything but sonotube that's allowed by the state building code, we're probably gonna be more supportive of than the sonotube.
I believe we can do those diamond tubes. I'll have to run it by the company. They have their own in-house engineering
Yeah.
team, and I know they designed this in order to meet and actually exceed the wind load because of the island. They wanted it to exceed a little bit, so I can have that discussion with them on confirming that. But it was my understanding that I believe we were going to be doing the helical, so I'm not sure about the sonotube style on there, if that was an error.
yeah. If you could check on that and also provide us with a profile of the structure, so that we have the height and number.
Yes, I can submit
number of
that. There's full
tiles.
plans.
Yeah.
There are full plans to it that I can provide. Have
Okay.
all the dimensions and the heights and everything to it. So I'll make sure we submit that.
All right, thanks.
Okay, thank you, Mary. TJ, any questions on the proposal for the pavilion?
Nope, no questions here. I was,
Thank you,
Yep.
TJ. Woody, any questions on this?
No, I don't have any questions or comments at this time, but thanks.
Woody, question on site plan review with the planning board is,
I think that's gonna be coming up in 2 weeks, but I'm not sure. They're
Okay.
not on the agenda this week.
No, I believe we were waiting to first make sure everything was addressed with conservation, and then shortly thereafter submit to planning. I'll have to talk to Steve because he's spearheading that if he's done the initial submittal, but I believe if it hasn't happened yet, it will be soon.
okay,
For the extension, correct?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. There's two parts to it. Yes, we're first going in for an extension because of that rule that it extended, that we were made aware of. First, we want to extend the existing
the tolling.
and then we're going to go in for amendment addressing any changes to the plan.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Woody. Mick, questions for TJ or Vince on this matter?
Yeah, both TJ and Vince, I guess. Just the only concern is you're constructing a roof. So you're going to have concentrated flow, especially like during heavy rain events. You're concentrating your flow off of that roof line down into the, I know you've got a barrier dune and some other structures around here to kind of help protect that. But is there any amendments or is there any mitigation to help absorb that concentrated flow off that roof line from eroding, the structures that you've already placed in there? So now you're taking like complete rainfall and now you're concentrating into one sheet flow off of that roof line.
Vince, is this a hip roof or is it just a gable? I don't know if whoever's controlling the plan, if we could slide that.
And you can slide it over. So it's actually divided. It's splitting, I guess, the flow.
Some of it can be directed to that rain garden because rain garden doesn't get a lot of runoff.
Yeah, that's kind of,
Help that.
yeah.
Plantings.
I guess that's my only concern. That's a good point, Mary. If it can be redirected or shown on a plan that it's being somehow, like if you do
Gutters.
some type of like excavation or gutters or riprap to flow into those kind of mitigation areas, I think that'd be helpful to the commission.
So maybe a crushed stone splash area at the overhang.
Even if it's a crushed stone, that's a good point, Bob. Just to show that you are compensating for that kind of concentrated flow off of that roof line.
I could try to hop it. So Vince and I actually discussed this earlier today. So if we were to do just like a crushed stone drip edge, does that sound like that'd be, Vince, does that seem to, that should work, at least on the dune side? Because we kind of discussed the same thing, that, you know, if we were to go to a gutter, we do get more of a rush of water coming up that
Right.
would kind of cause more erosion than, yeah, the dripping, you know, for smaller events doesn't really cause much of an issue, as most of it's going to go right to the sand. On the heavy events, you know, you will have that half of the roof splashing down. And Vince and I had talked that, you know, ideally if something were to kind of wash out, they would rake it up and kind of fix it as they needed to, and try to avoid putting the pipes in the ground or having it, you know, coming straight down off of a gutter to a splash pad or of some sort that, you know, I know isn't ideal in some of the dune situations, as if there were a flooding event, it'd be picked up and kind of used as a projectile. But if the commission's on board, and Vince, if you're on board of doing just a strip of stone at the drip line, or at least on half of the roof.
It should definitely be doable on the, what would that be, the south side, where the rain garden is. On the north side, we already have kind of the walkway that exists, at least on that one corner. Yeah, there. It might
So
be an
really
issue
just be
on that
this.
corner, but I would imagine it wouldn't be an issue on the remaining north
Yeah.
portion.
So it would
Yeah.
ultimately be 1/4 of the roof here that would be kind of just falling onto sand. Everything else we could kind of accommodate for and
Yeah,
put some sort of splash.
Right, and if you could redirect it into your rain gardens, you know, whether it's, you know, riprap or some type of crushed stone that's not gonna, you know, flood sand into your rain garden and, you know, reduce the usefulness of your rain garden. So that's, you know, just compensating for that extra flow, because now it's concentrated as opposed to just being straight down rain flow. So, and I think it's more just, you know, for these heavy rain events, downpours that we get, you want to be able to redirect that flow. So,
Yeah, Mick, anything else?
no, it's a,
Okay, thank you, Mick. Diane, questions for TJ events?
Thank you.
Okay, Frank, questions for TJ or Vince?
No, nothing at this time.
Okay, so guys, just to do a recap, I think just living on the island here, knowing how it rains, we don't have puddles in our yards because it's all sand. But I think to Mary and Mick's point, you're gonna have that leading edge of the roof coming down and sheeting down, and you're going to get that little trough in the ground. I think that's what we're just trying to address with stone there. So I would suggest, and I think it would be beneficial if you could put the splash guard on the south side, and what you can do on the north side. It's all like grade vent. It's not going to be a trip hazard or whatever. Where your walk is already existing, that's going to act as kind of a splash guard anyway. It's not going to create the erosion, but that's just my thought. Let me circle back. Mason, what are your thoughts on this?
Nothing at this time, Bob.
Okay, Mary, I'm going to circle back with you. See if we can do a recap of where we're
The
at.
additional,
Piling, we're looking for an
just the pilings is my
cross-section.
issue, yeah.
cross-section showing the piling, the style.
Yep.
In the ground, you know, typical cross-section elevation. Showing probably the splash guard. I think, Vince, you're gonna wind up needing to do that.
A quick question on that. On the north side, my only concern there, adding the kind of stone along there, is because people walk on the south side. People aren't going to be walking on that side because that's where the rain garden and the dune are. But on the north side, kind of closer to the boat, my concern is that just any stone that gets put there is going to end up getting kind of kicked over with sand. It's going to end up just getting covered in sand anyway. I'm just curious, is any thoughts on kind of how we could avoid
Oh,
that issue?
They both will, probably both sides will.
Well, yes, eventually they both will, just
Yeah.
with,
Yeah, that's why I was thinking that a gutter to a downspout that discharged to the rain garden would avoid that.
so it would be ideal that it discharges straight into the rain garden area.
I mean, unless that messes up the stormwater calcs, but maybe you guys can think about, you know, what would work best to just minimize that erosion concern from just the velocity of the runoff.
Okay.
We're open to suggestions, so.
Yeah, I mean, I think that driving by, you've done some of the dune work there. It looks good. Maybe TJ mentioned you're gonna be starting the planting when it's more appropriate, probably in April or before the beginning of May. And I mean, you're closing out all those open items there. And I think if we can come up with a solution on whether it is a gutter vents that drains into the rain garden, or a combination of a gutter on one side and the splash pad on the other. I think that's the remaining issue, other than just having a little more detail on the structure itself.
Great, we can definitely get that.
Okay. So at this point, I would suggest you consider a request to continue to our April 1st meeting. Should certainly be able to get that stuff into us by then. It's a pretty low bar, not a lot of detail. Any other requests, team, on this matter, so that the applicant and his engineer have clarity on what we're seeking? TJ, you have clarity of what we're looking for, right?
Sorry, me, TJ.
Yeah.
Or-
Yeah, right, yeah, yeah.
Both kids are gonna say yes.
Yeah.
Which
Every
time you
time-
say TJ, I get
Yeah,
confused.
no, that's touche. We get too many TJs on this call.
Yes, yeah, I think Vince and I can come up with a solution, whether it's a combo of the two or come up with something to address the stormwater part of it.
Yeah.
And I believe Vince probably already has the elevation and kind of cut section, because I know this was already through ZBA, so I'm sure you have that as part of that filing. So we can definitely get both of them submitted back to the commission and be back in a couple weeks.
Okay,
Okay.
so I will entertain a motion to continue this public hearing to the April 1st meeting at the applicant's request.
So moved.
So moved.
That was TJ and who else?
I
Second.
second.
Okay, Diane, we're gonna use you because
Right.
I'm writing your
Me and
name.
TJ used to have that down, you know?
I know, guys, you gotta get back in the swing of this, you're adding time to our meeting here.
That's right.
Okay, all in favor of continuing with public hearing as Mary,
Yes,
TJ,
Aye,
TJ Conti this time, by the way.
that's right.
Woody,
Yes.
Mick,
Aye.
Diane,
Yes.
Frank,
Yes.
Bob Connors. Okay, thank you, guys. We'll see you on the 1st. Next matter before the commission is an amendment request for DEP file number 0501-339, Newbury landfill, 75 Boston Road. Applicant is submitting an amendment request to relocate the firing range, reconstruct the concrete block recovery structure on a slab, and associated grading. A firing range recovery structure is proposed on the existing degraded area within the 100-foot BVW buffer, the 200-foot riverfront area of Little River and the Great Marsh ACEC. Mason, can you provide an overview and a recommendation on this one?
Yeah, so like the application says, where the range is being moved, it's a previously degraded area, so there'll be no more disturbance needed to move it. It looks like there was, when I was out on site, it looks like there was some necessary grading to be done on the back path, and I can pull up some photos. And then the only thing I would recommend is it looked like there was some tubes or some other construction material that was at the end of the slope. So I would suggest that those things get cleaned up during this project. And I'll share some photos if the applicant would like to share.
So Mason, the original filing, was this for the solar array that's on the property? Or is this a totally separate filing? Maureen, can you, I see you waiting
Yes.
patiently to answer my question.
Yeah, so this was, the original filing was for the solar panel project, some security fences, roadway improvements, and drainage on the property. And the commission had issued an order that was valid through July 6th of 2024. And it's been extended under the economic stimulus bill to 2026.
Okay. Okay, Maureen, why don't you make the presentation on what you're proposing for an amendment?
Sure. Could I bring in the plans for the commission?
Certainly. So
All
just
right.
give us your name and position, Maureen, just for the record.
Sure. Maureen Harold, Norse Environmental Services. Let me move this. So the original firing range is located in this location here. And what we'd like to do is relocate it to this position here. There's an existing fence that goes around the property. We have the perennial stream, the Little River, in this location. This is the 200-foot riverfront area. So we are proposing to relocate it on compact gravel within the outer riparian zone. I did address the riverfront regulations. Because this is an existing landfill, we're limited in terms of how we can improve the property. Actually, let me give a detail. I'm going to show the detail on the other page so the commission can kind of get an idea of what this is going to look like. Whoops. Okay, so this is the firing range here. So because it is on the landfill property, the landfill has a thick liner throughout the property. We are proposing a metal roof. We had thought about possibly providing infiltration, but that's just not an option given the fact that it's a landfill and we have that thick liner throughout the property. It's a 40 milliliter textured membrane liner. Let's see, we're proposing a 365 square foot recovery structure. What we can do to improve the riverfront area is by incorporating a seed mix, a wildflower mix around the exposed soils on the property. But essentially what we'd like to do is remove the blocks from the original firing range, reconstruct it, construct a metal roof and this wooden post. We can apply the seed mix and attempt to improve the riverfront area in the degraded area. And that essentially concludes my presentation and I'm open to any questions or concerns.
So Maureen, let me start with my question. On the recovery structure, is that to recover the lead that's being expended during the target?
Yes, that is correct.
And this is pretty much limited to the Newbury Police for training purposes?
That is my understanding. It's limited and from talking with a solar, you're not going to have 15 men out there, that it'll be kind of an individual shooting range or 2 or 3 individuals out there.
Okay. All right. Let me open this up to questions from the members. Mary, any questions?
I'm just having a hard time visualizing this. So this structure I'm looking at is what you shoot into?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. And then the spent ammunition is collected from this, or?
That's correct. So it'll basically be enclosed on 3 sides with a roof on top.
Yep.
And after they're done shooting, they're going to go and pick up the castings.
Okay, so the direction of the shooting is changed from, can you go back to the other plan?
Sure can.
You were shooting.
So this is the firing range here.
That's the firing range.
I'm sorry, this is the recovery structure.
The proposed recovery structure, yes.
The proposed recovery structure and the original recovery structure was in this location.
And where do they fire from currently?
With the existing structure?
Yeah.
You know, I'm not sure.
If you blow your plan up, it kind of showed a walkway. It looked like there was a 50-foot walkway.
I can't, just trying to think if they're changing the direction of firing from west to east.
I can add some context to that.
Okay, that'd be great, Mason.
That helps. So here's a photo.
Do you want me to stop sharing?
Yeah, I can just show a couple photos just to add some
Oh,
context.
that'd be perfect. Yeah, thank you, Mason.
Thank you, Mason.
So here's the direction here. So if you guys can look at them simultaneously.
That's the existing structure, okay.
Correct. This is, it seems like this is what they shoot out of, coming in this direction where my mouse is, if you guys can see that.
Okay, yep.
Yes.
And then the new range in relation to this, or the new recovery structure in relation to this picture, would be around this area,
Yep.
shooting in this direction.
Yep, okay, that's what I thought. So they're changing from west to east, okay. And just, you know, obviously there's resource area in either direction, but you're going closer to, you're going into the ACEC and into the riverfront area with the proposed structure. So just curious, like what's the purpose of moving it? Why is it not working where it is? Just so I fully understand. Is it, what's
So-
driving this? If
So-
it's just a matter of convenience of where they want to, or is it?
So I haven't been in, it's a good question, Mary. I haven't been involved with the Newbury Police. But Sam from Ace Solar is here. Sam, have you talked, do you know the answer to Mary's question?
Hi there. Yeah, this is Sam from Ace Solar. I'm the assistant PM on this project. And sorry, can you repeat what your question was?
Why is it being moved? What's the reason for moving it?
So I can, I gotta follow up and I can give you the exact answer. But what I have heard from my team and Nick Moore, who is the PM, that before it was, where the location originally was proposed, it was shooting towards the train tracks, and now it's being moved to run parallel to the train tracks. So it's not actually being shot towards the train tracks.
Out towards the marsh. It looked like it's going towards that. It looks like Mason's got his hand up.
Yeah, Mason, you're on mute, Mason.
You're muted,
Yeah.
Mason.
So currently they shoot perpendicular to the train tracks. The new proposal is parallel. But I believe from what I've heard is the necessity to move the recovery area is for the access road going around for fire access.
Okay.
I do recall that too, when they were before us getting the project approved, that the existing firing range is in the way of an access road for fire safety.
Yeah.
There wasn't room to move it over or anything, so they were gonna relocate it at a future time, and here we are today. So
Yeah, I'm all for supporting the police department and having them have a safe range. I just think it might be helpful to have a site visit so I could figure this out.
This
And
photo may
how
give
far
a
it
little
is to the,
context too. You can see in the background here, this access road.
and they need to keep that. It doesn't look like it's in the access road though. Is that?
I believe it kind of splits it, like it's half and half, covering it a bit.
How far along is the solar project, I guess? Is that actually started?
I don't believe that it has.
Okay. Might be, I think to Mary's point, might be helpful that if this access road, the fire road, if that's what it's being called, if that could be flagged, well, before we go out there, just give us some clarity. It makes a lot of sense shooting parallel to the tracks rather than perpendicular to the tracks. Mason, can you go back to the recovery structure? Because it looked like just cement blocks with gravel at a 45-degree angle in it to the untrained eye, and just that looks like it's just full of material of some sort. The capture, any lead penetrating the targets. Okay, yeah, that just it's a less complex structure than So Maureen, you're looking to kind of duplicate this in a little more sturdy fashion in a different location. So I guess
That's correct.
one of my concerns would be the materials that's within this, whether it's gravel or sand, will have lead in it. And it should be handled accordingly as far as either reclamation or proper disposal.
I
Okay?
agree.
And it's all contained. I think it's just a matter of having a plan in place before they start to be able to do that. But I think Mary's point on a site visit would add some clarity. Mary, why don't I hold you there and let me go around to the other members, and you can always circle back if you have any additional questions. TJ Conti, any questions on this amendment to the landfill?
Yes, the use is only for the police department, no outside recreational use?
Yes, that's correct.
No, I
Okay.
would say that the environmental police would also be able to use it, but it would be law enforcement,
Yeah.
primarily Newbury, but I wouldn't say it would be exclusive where, we have EPOs in the area that may be using it too.
Yeah, which is fine. Just, it's not gonna be an open fire range for the
Yeah,
public.
you can't go there, TJ, to shoot. That's
Martin H. Burns.
yeah,
Yeah, right.
there you go. Anything else,
That was my
T?
only question.
Okay, thanks, TJ. Woody?
No,
So, Woody,
I
is
don't have
this,
any questions.
so
Yeah.
this was before you on the planning board, obviously. And-
Yes, and I don't have the plans in front of me, but on the plans, the fire range was in the way of a road for fire access. And they couldn't move it over because then you get into the marsh area. So
Okay,
they determined back then that it had to be relocated.
so that was on the existing conditions, proposed conditions planned before the planning board?
Yep.
Maureen, do you have that? I think that may help us.
I do.
I think that would give us the clarity that we're,
All right, I am gonna zoom in on the existing structure. So this is the existing road here. And then we have the fence and the resource area, as well as a 100-year floodplain.
Yep.
So in terms of shifting it, I don't know, to the south, we can't do that. And we can't shift it any closer to the solar panels.
okay, but you're showing it in that fire roadway.
That's correct. This is the
Okay.
roadway here. It's
Okay, so that's the
That's
primary
correct.
reason of relocating this. Okay.
right.
Okay, and
Okay,
can
and then
you,
zoom, zoom
yeah,
over
to
to
the
the other,
proposed. To the
Zoom in
proposed,
to the proposed.
yeah,
yeah.
Okay.
the tracks, okay,
So here are the tracks.
yep,
They'll be shooting this way, kind of standing on Boston.
Okay, okay. I think
And
that's what we
going
were
in this
missing, Mary, is where they were shooting from.
yeah, or even, I mean, it looks like it, the way, oh, I guess it would be oriented that way, okay. And then
Yes.
something is supporting it, oh, that's just. fencing?
That's erosion controls,
Okay,
which is this line, and then just some minor grading. But again, this kind of dotted area, this notes the compact dense gravel that's there right now.
okay. Yeah, and where's the ACEC boundary? It comes all the way out. Yeah,
Oh,
there,
it's-
it's all that cross-hatched area,
right.
okay.
Yeah.
Is this, I wonder if this is lined underneath it so that they can recover the material? And it doesn't leach into the ground?
My understanding is it's lined underneath it, yes.
Okay. That's helpful to know. I understand exactly where it is now, that's helpful.
Okay.
Okay.
So Mary, do you still feel the need to have a site visit? I mean, I think the rationale with, there's nothing else out there where the solar array hasn't been built.
Yeah, right, and, I mean, it's just right down the street, I walk past it all the time.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
house is
yeah,
right down the street.
yeah.
So, so the, what's my question? The wetland was flagged as part of the 2020.
That's correct.
For whatever filing, okay.
Yeah.
Right, I get it. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. So Woody, any other comments before I move on to Mick?
Nope, I'm good. Thank you, Bob.
Okay, thank you, Woody. Mick, comments for Maureen on this one?
Yeah, well, one, the concrete block structure kind of raises a little bit of concern. I mean, for those of us who have been to shooting ranges, there's a lot of different types of engineered materials and engineered barriers that will absorb shot as opposed to deflect it. So that might be something to consider, as opposed to having concrete block, which could deflect rounds. And you can't control the direction on deflection. So that'd be something, I don't know if that's been considered. And my second concern is the environmental impact. I don't know how often this range would be used, or like kind of the level of shot, but there's obvious like impact to soils and groundwater from lead, strontium, a lot of different other impacts would, or just leachate potential on lead and other heavy metals. And perchlorate is a big concern with most ammunition ranges, where it's a degradation of the heavy metals as they sit in the soil and will readily leach into groundwater. So again, I think it would be dependent on the use of this, how often it's used and the level of rounds that are left in, and whether or not there's a plan to put some type of barrier underneath this structure that would prevent leachate from heavy metals into the soil and groundwater. Those would be my concerns.
So the good news is we already have the barrier beneath the ground because of the landfill. So I think that would address your concerns about leaching through the groundwater, because we already have that barrier there. And in terms of the concrete blocks, I'm sure you're absolutely right about that. The intent was to use the materials on site. So we'd like to dismantle the existing firing range recovery structure and rebuild it in this location. So that was the intent of using the blocks.
I think it's great to be able to, I don't want to cause any like undue cost to the town or on rebuilding, but there are other materials out there that are engineered for small capacity ranges that will absorb shot as opposed to deflect it. So,
Maureen, can you go back to the elevation of the recovery structure?
Of the existing?
Yeah, no, the proposed.
The elevation.
It's, you had a cross section showing the roof,
I do. Okay.
The one thing I'm just curious is it on a cement pad to start, or is it just on grade? Okay, yeah, so it's
We're
going
proposing a concrete slab.
Okay.
And
So
then
that's going to provide containment to a point. And okay, top of sand filler. So they're using a sand filler to absorb the rounds.
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, now it's starting to make a little more sense. Okay, I mean, all of us that have belonged to gun clubs and ranges, usually that whole fire pathway would be protected so that it was impossible to have a stray round go outside the intended range. I suppose with law enforcement being trained professionals, that a local gun club wouldn't be able to do this anywhere in Massachusetts, in all
Right.
honesty. I mean, I think that's the real point here, but we're looking at this from a wetland protection. Is the resource, the groundwater is protected because it's lined. This is probably, and we can find out the number of rounds per year, it's probably a low capacity use. And it's probably for qualifying every year with each patrolman has to have so many rounds in. But yeah, okay, I don't have any other questions. So any other questions? Are there any, why don't I do this? Any other questions from the members before I open it up?
Yes.
Okay.
Just one question, for Maureen, why an amendment rather than a new filing? I know that DEP has a policy guidance about when amendments are allowed, and when you're increasing the impacts, in this case, you're taking it in, putting it into the ACC, which, but probably, is it the same distance from the wetland or further from the wetland edge than it was previously?
It appears further from the wetland edge.
But it's in the riverfront area.
Correct. It's in the riverfront area, but it's
But
in an
further-
existing degraded riverfront
Riverfront
area.
area, right, but it is further from the marsh.
Further from the marsh. It's in the outer riparian. Let me go back up to.
Making you work for this one.
That's all right. You're keeping me on my toes, Mary, you know?
Right, yep.
I like it. So here's the 100-foot buffer. Here's the outer riparian zone. My thought was, rather than filing a new notice of intent, which would cost substantially more money, in my opinion, we were putting this in a degraded area. We're not proposing to cut any trees.
Yep.
It's on compact gravel. It's an existing landfill. So in my opinion, it's really a low quality riverfront area. I know we're in the ACEC, but we do have the train tracks splitting the ACEC.
Well, what would you say is the distance between that corner, the nearest corner, and the wetland edge? I can't see what the scale is on this plan.
Let me see if I have a blow up of this.
Looks like I'm about to see it.
I mean, basically, this is relocation of an existing structure from one
Yep.
part of the property
it's-
to the other, so it,
I'm trying to
yeah,
find
no, I
some
know you're trying to.
justification here that maybe it's a better situation than what the existing one is, and that
So here's
justify the order, the
Mhm.
amendment.
Yep.
I have to find a scale. Here we go, Mary.
Yep.
1 second. Scale as shown. Okay, this one's a 10 scale. Okay, so from the BBW, I'm taking it from the erosion control. So we're at 57 feet, and to the structure itself 61. So we're outside of the 50-foot from the C series.
Yeah, we don't have any of that, but yes. And then how far is it from the existing?
Okay, so from the existing. God, my eyes are getting terrible.
You're just getting tired, Maureen, because it's getting.
Old and tired, Bob, I tell you.
Oh, well, you're not alone, kiddo. Not alone.
The existing is, so the wetland is at the bottom of the riprap slope, and that's about 27 feet away.
In the existing condition.
Correct, where the
Okay.
existing structure is right now.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Well, why don't I do this? Why don't I open this up to the public? Are there any raised hands from the public at this point?
Seeing none.
Okay.
I'm
Okay,
seeing-
Mason, any further comments in your part?
No, not right now.
Okay, so team, let's just do a recap here. We talked about a site visit. Do we feel the need? I mean, for me, it seems Maureen showing that last plan, which showed the fire road in the orientation of the fire range. That clarified some issues for me, but so does anyone want a site visit on this? I mean, Mary can do a site visit daily when
I
she's walking
can
one of her
look by it,
dogs.
yes. But I understand now where it is.
Okay.
It'd be more visible from the road. I don't know if that's an issue for people, but
Mm.
easier to enforce, I suppose.
Okay, Is there any other additional information that we're requesting from the applicant at this point?
I'd just like to get special Conservation Commission access. That's all.
Well, you'll have to be deputized, Mick. Well, you know,
I'll
well,
do it.
maybe, well, you know what? Well, maybe we'll just try to word that into the order on, what do you think, weekly inspections?
Yeah, I could do a weekly inspection. I'd be glad to.
Yeah. You know, my understanding is it's not heavily used, that we're actually was with the chief yesterday, and it's an opportunity that they have to they have a new weapon, they get to test fire a new weapon.
Yep.
Revolver. I'm assuming this is this limited to to handguns, or is it long rifles? I'm just curious.
I was told from Ace Solar that it would be handguns.
Okay.
But you may want to verify that with the chief, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Mason, why don't you, if you have a chance to reach out to Chief Fisher?
Yep.
Just to, obviously the travel of a handgun round is a lot less than a long gun. Okay, any other information needed? Okay, are we entertaining closing the public hearing at this time? If so, is there a motion?
So moved.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. Roll call, all in favor? Mary?
Yes.
TJ?
Aye.
Woody?
Yes.
Mick?
Aye.
Diane?
Yes.
Frank?
Yes.
And Bob Connors. Okay, what special conditions do we want to consider before we entertain a motion to amend the order? Mary, any wordsmithing that we want to add to this, other than letting Mick?
Maybe just restore the area, revegetate the
Yeah.
area where the,
All disturbed areas to be revegetated?
yes,
Okay, so kind of a basic
yeah,
basic general conditions would be, the one thing I think we touched upon earlier, Maureen, was the removal of the sand fill that's being used as the backstop should just be handled and disposed of properly.
Okay.
Not
yeah,
just
not
because of the
spread
lead.
on the road or anything like that.
Yeah, they'll probably sand the lead to reclaim it and then reuse the sand, but okay, so I think, so as a special condition, all disturbed areas to be revegetated and like the surrounding, and any removal of the recovery fill to be properly handled and disposed of. And that the conservation agent should be notified prior to construction for a walkthrough. Okay, so I will entertain a motion to issue an order of conditions for the Newbury landfill firing range with those previously mentioned conditions.
Yeah, I don't know, yeah.
Second.
Okay, so Mary, someone has they could just mute their line, there's a little backbeat coming, so that was Mary and Mick?
Yes.
Okay, roll call, all in favor? Mary?
Yes,
TJ?
Aye.
Woody?
Yes.
Mick?
Aye.
Diane?
Yes.
Yes.
Frank?
Also,
Yeah.
Bob, I have to leave the meeting now.
Okay, thank you, Frank.
You're welcome.
Okay, we have one public hearing. Recently, the file number came in, it didn't come in with comments. So this is DEP file number 05014445, 7 Marsh Ave. The applicant proposes to install a seasonal dock for the use of a single-family home located at 7 Marsh Avenue. The permanent access walkway is proposed above mean high water. The walkway will use open flow decking. Mason, can you provide an overview on this, and hopefully the applicant is present to. Just been
Yeah,
patiently waiting for this, apparently.
Yeah, so seasonal dock install, and I was able to go to the site. I believe that I shared photos of the site earlier in the year around October. So I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with it. But the thing that I would request is that everything be staked out before approval. So the wetland flagging, it would be good if that could be put back in place, identifying the top of coastal bank, and then also having stakes where the start of the dock is going to be, would be ideal.
Is there a site plan that you can load for us? And welcome, just give us your name and address and explain what you'd like to do on your property.
Good evening, everyone. TJ Melvin, with Millennium Engineering. Here with me tonight's Peter LaRiviere, the owner of 7 Marsh Ave. So the applicant is looking to install a seasonal dock. You can zoom in to kind of go over some of the details.
I'll let you share a screen, TJ, and then you
Okay.
can zoom as you need to.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
See this okay?
Yes.
Yes, yep, we can.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so kind of following my mouse here, this is kind of the extent of the entire dock system itself. Going through this portion would be a permanent structure with through flow decking. All of this entire portion is above the mean high water. So this will all remain as a permanent structure. Now, between these two blue lines here, we have an area that dips down beneath mean high water. So this would be a temporary walkway that would extend from the permanent section here to this other permanent section here, which this entire section is above mean high water as well. So this would kind of be a metal ramp between the two sections of the decking. And then falling down through here, again, another section of ramp down to the float itself, which would be anchored on either side.
I think if you go down to the side view.
Yeah,
Probably.
yeah, I was gonna say, I can go to the cross section in a second, make a little bit more sense. And as part of this, again, this was previously approved by the commission. So we're just kind of started this kind of tan line here. This would just be like a defined pathway through the woods, no actual ground treatment, just kind of brush removed and just a footpath to get down to the dock. So this probably tells the story the best. Again, this shows more of the resource areas and everything, but so coming in off of that footpath, here's that first permanent section that I had mentioned that's all about mean high water. Between this section here will just kind of be the ramp to get from one permanent structure to the next. This is that second permanent structure all above mean high water. And then the ramp down to the float itself. As part of this, there's an area up here of kind of some old construction / debris left from the from a while back. As many may remember, this lot years ago was in disrepair, and a lot of removal has taken place by Peter since he purchased the property. So we would be proposing to remove that as well as part of this. As far as installation, we'd be putting out some matting to be able to get any vehicles down here to install the piles that would support the permanent structures. And then anything on this side of the permanent structure would either have to be done by hand or by boat to install the helical portions to tie down the floats themselves. Again, here's kind of the cross-section view. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions the commission may have. Steve Sawyer had done the design, so I'm not as at his level of expertise with this, but I can certainly try to answer any questions you have.
So TJ, has there any filing been done at the state on this?
No, not to my knowledge. We've just submitted the notice of intent with you and DEP, obviously. But no other further permitting, to my knowledge, has been done.
Okay, Mary, why don't we start with you because you're our resident expert on this now.
Thanks. Well, I know I had some conversations with Peter on this in the past. One of the things we need, which it doesn't seem to be in the file, is comments from Division of Marine Fisheries. You're working in the coastal zone, so we need that. That is required to be filed at the same time with as the notice of intent. So we won't be able to act without that. It looks like you're just outside of rare species habitat. So I don't think you need to notify natural heritage in this case, but marine fisheries will be critical. Some of the things that they're going to be concerned about is the fact that the floats bottom out at low tide. And also they're going to look to you to try to use flexible roads with helical piles for anchor support, which are more expensive, but that's what they've been pushing for recently. But you know,
Yeah, here's kind of a section.
Yep.
Which I think that's kind of what
Right.
they
Standard.
have been required. Yeah.
Yep. The constructability questions that you brought up, you're an ACC, so you can't impact salt marsh. If your dock is constructed according to the DP, small dock and pier guidelines, and it's elevated and has the proper spacing, for the deck spacing to allow light to penetrate, that's not considered an impact, but use of construction mats to access with equipment would not be allowed. So there may be some thoughts about how you could actually construct this. And also the big issue is that you've got two pieces of temporary structure, presumably to avoid Chapter 91 jurisdiction, because just to refresh some of the members, you can't get a Chapter 91 license for a pier and dock in an ACEC right now, unless your town has an approved harbor management plan, which Newbury does not. So that means that they license everything below mean high water. So you have a crossing over mean high water, and over the salt marsh, a portion of which is below mean high water. And you also have another seasonal ramp that expands and seasonal floats that extend over mean high water. The department has been essentially saying if your seasonal structure, you can get a harbor master annual permit rather than a Chapter 91 license for these structures. But it's going to be hard to get this thing out of the it's going to be hard to get it out seasonally. The ramp, the middle ramp particularly, I don't know exactly how you do that without having additional impacts to the marsh every time you put it in and take it out.
The intent, I think, was a seasonal permit, not I think, it is a seasonal
Right, that's what
permit,
you're
so
trying
that-
to get, yes.
Right, that would be removed and permitted annually.
So everything to the end of the fixed pier, well, you have two fixed sections separated by a
That's a
temporary
40
section.
Yeah, that's a 40-foot span of the aluminum.
Yes, that's a really
Angle.
long aluminum ramp.
Yeah.
And it's going to be really hard to get it out without equipment. So I don't know how physically that happens. It's one thing to take the ramp and the floats and float them down and pull them out on a ramp downstream. But to get that middle part out, I don't quite understand how that could happen without additional impacts to the marsh.
Is it
It's a
any
very
different?
unusual situation where you've got a mean high water and then it goes higher and then it goes lower again. I haven't seen this before.
Is it any different than all the other docks on the river where they have to take out the walkways that are actually sitting on the marsh? So they, annually they have to remove those. And
They do.
typically, typically, they would do it at high tide and if you get a, skip in there or something of that sort to
Yeah,
really-
I don't, how do you get it past? Yeah, how do you get it? Well, there's questions about that, how you would actually dismantle it and get it out at high tide.
Let me ask the
Really big,
question.
it's a really big ramp.
The permanent ramp, the first permanent structure you have before the 40-foot temporary ramp is, how long is that?
You'd have to go down to the bottom, I think, to.
It's obviously longer than 40 feet.
Yeah, it's about 50 to 55 feet.
Okay. And that is, it appears it's going to be straight.
Yeah,
Correct.
so the thought would be, and again, kind of the mayor's point, getting it out, but kind of pulling this ramp and just
Back
putting it
over-
right onto this and leaving it
What,
there.
what's the width of the temporary ramp and what's the width of the permanent structure?
5 is the permanent, and 36
okay.
is the temporary.
Okay, so that's,
You could pull it right onto the permanent structure.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
that seems to be the,
Yeah.
I think to Mary's point is, how do you do that without without some sort of equipment? It's gonna be probably muscle power with some men, but
And having a 40-foot unsupported ramp connecting to, just without any support. I don't know that whether that even complies with even a building permit to do that. I don't know. That would be something to also consider.
surprisingly, they come
Pretty-
engineered, Mary. Yeah,
Yeah,
They do, but they're
Yeah.
usually not quite that long.
yeah. Well, the longer they are, the heavier they are.
The heavier they are, and that means that
Yeah,
I mean, what I've seen people move the 30-footers and usually takes 4 people, but I haven't seen, that would be a pretty heavy ramp
Hmm.
to move by hand.
Okay, Mary, anything else?
That's all I have for now. I mean, I would recommend that we don't close the hearing.
Well, again, it seems like you mentioned that it requires a filing with Marine Fisheries.
Yep.
Okay. And TJ, that hasn't taken place yet.
I will confirm with Steve, and
Okay.
if it hasn't, we'll do that. If he has received anything, we will submit that to the commission.
Also,
Okay.
your filing says it's not an ACEC, but it is, so that should be corrected as well.
Yes.
Okay, why don't I continue on with questions from the other members? I think Mary's raised some good points, some good guidance for you guys. Woody, any questions for the applicant or TJ at this time?
My only
TJ
question was. the
TJ
float-
Melvin, not TJ
Yeah.
Conti.
Yes. My only question was the floats. It sounds like you're gonna float those out and store them somewhere else, not on site.
What was the question? I couldn't
The
understand.
full, the full floats that are in the river after the last gang walk. Yep, the full floats.
Yeah,
to the
yeah,
river.
these would have to be, taken down to a boat ramp and kind of removed that way. I'm not sure, Peter, if you plan on storing them
Yeah,
somewhere on that lot.
Yeah, Andrew Haley does mine now, and he takes them over to his kind of boat ramp, if you will, at a little marina that he has over there, so he just floats them, takes them out with a fork truck or a
Okay,
backhoe with a fork truck.
And then where do they go?
Andrew Haley's,
Just keeps them there.
yeah, Andrew Haley's dock is literally, it would be 40 feet, 50 feet from this dock, upriver.
But where do they get stored?
Right on, he has like a little marina there that he keeps some boats stored and docks stored if people don't have them. Room on the, off marsh, if you will. Mine, I have room on my land off marsh. I could,
Okay.
there's plenty of land here that if he can get them, high tide, he floats them over. He has a little, it's not a boat ramp, but it's like a boat ramp that he gets down into the river with, and he just lifts them out with a backhoe with a fork on it and chain. And then he can pretty much move them wherever they need to be. So you can get them off the river, or you can move them wherever.
all right, thank you.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
Nick, any questions for the applicant or TJ?
No, Bob, I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mick. Diane, questions?
Nope, thank you.
All right. Frank has signed off. He had to leave. All right, so guys, I think Mary.
Just one
you
more
have-
quick one. Sorry, I'm monopolizing everybody's time tonight.
No, Mary, this is your space, kiddo, not ours. That's
The notice of intent talks about creating some, restoring some salt marsh too. And I'm assuming it's where you say that pile of dispersed concrete and rocks is located.
Yeah, so the plan would be to remove that and
Remove that. And again, we'd need some details of how you would get in to do that without impacting the marsh. And whether or not there'd be any replanting or how would you restore that area?
Can I ask just a question on that, TJ? Because that's a surprise to me. I know it's there, but it's been there for years and years and years. But it's concrete, and it was concrete with some rebar in it. But when I'm not even sure where it came from. I'm sure when the Bloods owned the property that. So is that something I have to do? I mean, it's not something that is going to impede on, constructing this, or is that just a nice to do thing?
talking with Steve, he had mentioned kind of as mitigation for installing this, take out what you can. Obviously, to Mary's point, they don't want an excavator in there smashing on concrete to pull it out. At some point it's more detrimental taking it out than it is just leaving it. But I guess we would have to investigate more of how much of that can, be taken out by hand without, really causing any extra disturbance to the marsh.
Yeah, it's pretty covered with, marsh mud, if you will, and so anyway, I don't, again, if it would help with getting this approved, or if it, helps sustain the overall environment, then I'd be glad
Yeah,
to
it
do
might
it.
be
I'm just
something
wondering
worth-
if it's a requirement or if it's kind of a nice to do while we're in there, kind of clean it up. But
You know what I'm thinking, Mary? I think a site visit might be helpful here, just to kind of quantify all this.
Yep.
Guys, you're gonna need a continuance anyway, because you need the marine fisheries filing.
Yeah.
And you're going to want to get. They're gonna drive what you can do here, and we'll incorporate it into. We'll be incorporating it into, whatever decision we make. So. Let me do this. Are there any other questions from the members? I want to open this up to the public to see if anyone has any comments from the public. And then discuss continuing this and the site visit and additional documents that we may request. So Mason, are there any raised hands from the public?
Seeing none.
Okay. Do the members have any other questions? And so it seems we need some additional information. The type of equipment, if any, that's going to be used for driving the pilings. We need the results, the filing, marine fisheries filing. Mary, you mentioned small dock and pier guidelines. Are we looking for a compliance with that, or just a comparison to make sure they're in compliance?
It looks like so far they are more or
Okay.
less in compliance with the decking requirements and the height requirements but I didn't look at that specifically, but it needs to be at least 1-to-1. So 4 feet wide decking needs to be at least 4 feet off the marsh. So
Right.
that's. we would have
Okay,
to
and
confirm
there was
that.
a mention of mitigation details. Now, whether or not it's the removal of that rubble, the concrete rubble that's there, or it's some other mitigation, that needs to be clarified. But is there a request for a site visit?
I'd like to see it.
Yeah, no, I think it would be helpful.
yeah, if you just to give you a kind of an orient where it is, it's if you went to the boat ramp and looked right across the river, you'll see it a lot. But if you wanted to come onto the property, then you can get down there as well.
Okay, well, so team, you're going to need, you're gonna request a continuance to our April 1st meeting. you likely won't have your filing or your response from Marine Fisheries back from them. So why don't I suggest this? Why don't we continue this to April 1st? It may be helpful if you have some feedback from Marine Fisheries before we go out there.
Yep.
Um,
Mary, you know Bill, don't you, that lives on Marsh Ave as well? I think he's heads up.
Bill Hoffman?
Yeah,
Yep.
he's my neighbor, so would that help if I talk to him? In terms of getting a response quickly?
Oh, for Marine Fisheries? Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, because he works there. Well, it has to go to their environmental review team, and he's not.
Hmm.
I think he's out on offshore most days.
Yeah.
But yeah, you just send the notice of intent to the environmental review
Okay.
contact, and then they have 30 days to issue comments.
And I'll double check with Steve, sorry, he may have
He
already
may
sent
have
it
done
on,
it, and
so
we just
could
don't
be
have the
waiting.
comments back yet.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
it
so
was-
I'll check and I can follow up with Mason on that.
So team, I'm just gonna suggest, why don't you request a continuance to April 1st? Hopefully we'll have some more clarity in that, and at that meeting, we can decide on a site visit. And hopefully we'll have some details and comments back from Marine Fisheries.
Sounds
Great.
good.
Thank
Okay,
you.
all right, I will entertain a motion to continue this public hearing to April 1st at the applicant's request. That's Diane. And who was the second?
Second, TJ,
Okay, all right, we're back. TJ, you're back. TJ
I'm
Conti.
back.
Okay.
Back in
roll call.
order. We're back in
Yeah.
order.
Roll call, all in favor? Mary,
Yes.
TJ,
Aye.
Woody,
Yes.
Mick,
Hi.
Diane,
Yes.
Frank is not here, Bob Connors. Okay, thank you, guys.
And we
Thank
can
you.
maybe set up a time for a site visit at another time, or? do you
Yeah,
wanna do
I
it
was
both?
thinking, Mary, we'd wait to April 1st meeting
Okay,
and see if we had the marine fishery comments back, which
Okay.
may be, guidance
that
for us.
sounds fine.
Okay. All right. Last matter is a general project discussion, Pink House exemption declaration. Not TJ. Mason, why don't you give us an update on that? Received some communication from Refuge.
Yes, so the pink house went down. I don't think that's news to anyone at this point. I had done a site walk with Matt Hillman about a week or two before, talking about kind of best management strategies for demolition and things like that when working so close to a resource area. And just with the time constraint they were working with, they didn't have time to pull a permit. So he sent over this letter, which
Mason had mentioned that Matt had reached out to him, and I just said typically they would file an RDA. If they want to avoid that, then they'd have to claim their, federal supremacy exemption.
and he had reached out post-construction. I think that him and I will probably go back out to the site again next week. He wants to discuss some replanting options with some native species that will be salt tolerant and such. So
Well, he's either exempt or he's not, and you're a paid consultant from this point forward.
They claim, I know that
Yeah,
I'd probably have to abstain, but if they did file because they're a client, but they have claimed that exemption in other towns as well.
yeah.
They
You know
also, I
what?
think, are proposing a osprey platform out there.
What I had suggested was that they filed for RDAs on certain Phragmites and invasive species, invasive plant removal. And
We
they
can
should be-
request it, but they don't necessarily.
Yeah, in all honesty, the way they should have happened, they should have filed for an RDA and then claim the exemption. Would have been probably the way to go, but it's done. We should probably be able to work out some strategy with them. They have every right to claim the exemption. Usually it comes in as an opinion letter from general counsel, and then we hang our hat on it, because everyone claims, the supremacy exemption, but then they never reference the chapter and verse of the regs that provides that. And so, typically we probably want to operate on they're going to claim the exemption, it should come from general counsel.
Mhm.
And And then once they do it, they're all set. I mean,
Yeah,
you know, but I think for the record, it's a point worth discussing, Mary. I mean,
yeah, no, I have seen the letters that they have
Yeah.
sent out previously from council, so.
Yeah, it's easy enough to do, and I think, actually, if they can do that as a follow-up to this, honestly, Mason, it eliminates any controversy that Matt Hillman's not a lawyer, we're not lawyers. And general counsel certainly speaks for, or whoever counsel that they use would be, the appropriate body to provide that, but. Other than that, Mason, are there any staff reports or updates?
Yeah, a couple other things. I've been in talk with Wendy Reed over at Govs. She had a couple of general questions about the walkway across the marsh. I don't know if I uploaded those photos yet. I can share those after the meeting. Oh, actually, I do have them. So some photos to share. Now that everything has kind of settled. Just to give everyone an idea, it's about an 11-foot span from the edge of the bank on either side. Everything seemed pretty stable for the most part, including the access road. But she had some questions. Her main concern was that the amount of impact that they would have to do to the salt marsh to be able to remove a seasonal gangway is something that she thought would be more detrimental than a permanent structure. And then she was also asking, Mary, this might be more directed towards you, but I believe we had mentioned for every foot wide, it needs to be elevated 1 foot as well. She was saying that, or she was curious, because if it's elevated 4 feet in the air, then she was saying that they would need some sort of ramp on either end of the walkway to get up to there, which would be additional impacts. So I thought I'd just put that out there for the.
Yeah, I mean, she can maybe talk to DEP about this. It's the same issue that we just had where
Right.
it's you're in chapter 91 jurisdiction in an ACEC and technically a fixed pier, even if there are not any footings in the ground, it goes over mean high water, then you need a license and you can't get a license if it's in an ACEC. It's just, so they're trying to prevent a lot of structures in the ACC until that's the way the regulations work right now. They're really awkward. This is not a good solution. I'm working with Mass Audubon on a similar situation, and it's not a good solution for their needs, but it is in the marsh, and I know this is an old road that's kind of grown over and now becoming marsh on both sides. So there are just not any good answers for building a structure in a marsh in ACEC.
Mm-hmm.
So they have to be elevated.
So the existing order of conditions was for a restoration project.
They had a
And then we had a special
structure.
condition
Yeah,
for
they had she had a sketch. It was kind of an aluminum structure with some Trek decking or something like that, or mesh decking on top. I can't remember. With some posts, and they were just going to leave the posts in the ground and take out the structure seasonally, but that's twice a year. It has to come in and out, and it just doesn't make a lot of sense. It will create more impact, but that's the only way that I could see that they could get a structure approved. So maybe there's another way, and I don't know about it, but I can't see it.
Mm-hmm.
Would they, because we didn't approve the actual any type of a walkway structure. They had talked about the temporary aluminum type ramp that they could, which would be temporary.
They had steps up and a platform, and then it went down.
Yeah.
That's
but we didn't approve anything like that. So for them.
Yeah, we did. We approved it.
What the
We
walkway?
approved a structure there, yeah.
I thought we had just approved the
temporary aluminum ramp.
condition for them.
Yeah, that was the only thing we gave them there.
Oh, yeah, that's what I mean. That's temporary structure. It was approved, yes.
But if they wanted to come back and try to go back to the original proposed structure, would they be able to come back as an amendment to the existing order? Not guaranteeing any success, or it's
mean, they
Uh,
can do it if they can come back for more discussion, but I don't think that the rules have changed any.
Okay. Would they? Okay, I think Mason, you've got some. You've got some input on it.
Mhm.
They're welcome to try whatever they want, but it doesn't seem like anything has changed that would change what what would be allowable by.
I mean,
By
you could talk to
regulation.
the circuit rider, to Alicia and see if she has any thoughts on this.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that, where it was always a traveled roadway at some point, it's still a roadway. Even though it's, by eliminating the culvert, we've kind of orphaned that access, which is,
Yeah.
which is kind of troubling from one sense, but
It's exactly the same project that Mass Audubon is working with at Stackyard Road, that property down there in Rowley. This, there was a culvert, they want to remove the culvert. People use the culvert to step over, but
Yeah,
it's blocking the way. They want to take the culvert out, but now they need. I mean, it's access to an island. It's very limited access. It's not
but Kent's, Kent,
necessary access or anything like that. So,
Curious, Mary, how far along is the project in Rowley with Audubon?
oh, it hasn't been filed yet.
Okay.
I think Mary's point about talking to Alicia is a good one,
Maybe.
to see if there's some approach that we're not thinking. And actually, Mary, that might be helpful for your Audubon project in Raleigh too, if Alicia has some magic elixir to
Yeah.
test that this, but
I'll try and get some answers and
okay. All right,
just
anything
one.
else?
So there's a new submittal coming in to the planning department for a open space MBTA housing at 34 Central Street. I just received an ANRAD from them at the beginning of this week. Just to give everyone a heads up, I'm a direct abutter to this property, so I'll have to recuse myself. I'm in contacts now with.
But you don't vote on it anyway.
I can't be involved in it. Like I can't review
Okay.
litigation or be on site.
Yeah.
As far as I know. I talked with Lisa Mead.
Okay, well, whatever Lisa says is what you need to do then.
So I believe that we'll be working with Heidi Gaffney, who used to be the conservation agent in Topsfield. So I have a phone call with her tomorrow, and I believe that she'll be coming on to help everyone out.
Okay. All right. Anything else, Mason?
That's all.
Okay. Final words. Mary, any comments you want to add before we?
No, keep up the good work, Mason.
Yeah, I know you're doing a great job, my friend. TJ,
Awesome.
any final thoughts before we move to close the meeting?
None here.
Okay, Woody, how about yourself?
Thank you, everyone. That's all.
Okay, Mick, any good?
I
word?
am all good. Thank you.
Okay, Diane.
She's just joining back.
Uh-oh. She had to feed the dogs. Diane, did you have to feed the dogs or let the new puppy out?
Yeah, I have this thing plugged into a port, so I have two screens, and for some reason, it just thinks it's okay to shut down for no reason now, so.
Well, we
No,
want to
you
see a
can't
picture,
keep
we
them.
want to see a picture of your new puppy. That's before we close the meeting.
Yeah, he's been a pain.
Yeah.
All we're seeing is your keyboard right now.
Okay, uh-oh.
There we go.
All right. Is he making a motion to
cute.
close the meeting?
Yes, he would like to go out and pee now.
Okay.
I gotta go clean up my environmental.
I second that.
I have going on over
Okay.
here.
Do we have a motion, a second, all in favor?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Mary, TJ, Woody,
Yes,
Mick,
thank you.
Diane, Bob Connors, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Meeting closes 7:55.